In early 2025, President Trump unleashed a policy that's reshaping our world economy. With a stroke of a pen, new tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China have disrupted global supply chains, rattled financial markets, and triggered international retaliation. Today, we're exploring how these tariffs work, why they were implemented, and their potential to transform the global economic order. In March 2025, the US imposed 25% tariffs on most imports from Canada and Mexico, 20% tariffs on all imports from China, and additional levies on raw materials like steel and aluminum. These aren't ordinary tariffs. They were implemented using emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, allowing for swift, unilateral action against even longtime allies. The administration cited multiple justifications beyond economic protection: national security concerns, fentanyl trafficking, and illegal immigration. This marks a significant escalation of the America First agenda, with early data indicating American households could face an additional annual burden of approximately $1,200 as these costs ripple through the economy. A tariff is a tax imposed on imported goods by a government. The goal? To protect domestic industries, generate revenue, or retaliate against foreign trade policies. Tariffs come in different forms, each affecting prices differently. Let's break them down. 1. Ad valorem tariffs, the percentage tax. This is the most common type of tariff, charged as a percentage of the goods value. For example, the United States imposes a 25% tariff on Chinese steel imports. So, if a Chinese company exports $100 million worth of steel, an additional $25 million in tariffs is added to the cost. 2. Specific tariffs, the fixed cost per unit. Unlike percentage-based tariffs, specific tariffs apply a fixed charge per unit of goods, regardless of their price. For example, the US imposes a $1.05 tariff per litre of imported French brandy. So, if a company imports 10,000 litres, it pays $10,500 in tariffs, making foreign alcohol more expensive. 3. Tariff-Rate Quotas, the two-tier system. Some countries allow a limited amount of imports at a lower tariff rate, but anything beyond that limit faces much higher tariffs. For example, the US allows 1.3 million metric tons of sugar imports at a low 5% tariff. But if imports exceed this quota, a 50% tariff kicks in, making excess imports far more expensive. However, how is Trump's approach different? Unlike traditional tariffs targeting clear economic imbalances, these measures are explicitly tied to national security and implemented with an unprecedented degree of unpredictability. These tariffs are already forcing companies to reconsider entire supply chain configurations. Recent industry reports show that over 30% of affected manufacturers are actively exploring relocating production either domestically or to alternative markets. This strategy didn't emerge overnight. During his first term, Trump employed tariffs to protect American manufacturing and force trade agreement renegotiations. His current approach escalates this by targeting even nations with deep economic and diplomatic ties to the US. The motivations reflect multiple objectives: reducing the trade deficit, enhancing border security, and combating drug trafficking, reindustrializing the American economy, and leveraging economic pressure for geopolitical agenda. The Trump administration argued that other countries were engaging in unfair trade practices, such as imposing higher tariffs on US goods and providing subsidies to their domestic industries. The administration viewed the trade deficit as a sign of economic weakness and unfair trade relationships. The effects have been swift and uneven. US steel and aluminum manufacturers have seen increased domestic demand due to protection from cheaper imports. On the other side, consumers are bearing significant costs. Retailers like Target and Best Buy are warning of price hikes that could add $1,000 to $1,200 annually to household expenses. The burden of tariffs tends to disproportionately affect lower-income households. Industries reliant on cross-border supply chains face severe disruptions, with tens of thousands of trucks reported stuck at the US-Mexico border, severely impacting logistics networks that have been optimized over decades. Industries relying on imports, from tech to autos, are scrambling to adapt. However, companies quickly reconfiguring their supply chains are positioning themselves advantageously. The automotive industry provides a clear example of adaptation. Honda's decision to build its next Civic in Indiana rather than Mexico illustrates how companies are rapidly shifting production strategies to avoid tariff-induced cost spikes, potentially creating domestic jobs but at higher production costs. The international response has been swift and significant. Canada has imposed retaliatory tariffs on US goods, ranging from food products to automobiles. Meanwhile, Mexico has vowed to announce countermeasures. China responded with 10 to 15% tariffs on US agriculture, signaling its readiness for an escalating trade war. In a strong response to the latest wave of Trump-era tariffs, Premier Li Qiang, speaking at the China Development Forum in Beijing, reaffirmed the nation's preparedness to withstand economic shocks and uncertainties. He emphasized that China is bracing for potential disruptions while pursuing long-term economic resilience. These retaliatory measures risk a tit-for-tat escalation, one that could disrupt nearly $2.2 trillion in annual trade. The tariffs have had ripple effects across multiple sectors: logistics, insurance, construction, automotive, agriculture, and technology. The logistics and shipping industries have been hit hard. The insurance sector is also feeling the pressure. Uncertainty surrounding trade wars has led to a more cautious approach in underwriting. The construction industry is struggling with rising costs. Tariffs on essential materials like steel, aluminum, and lumber are making building projects more expensive. Retaliatory tariffs imposed by other countries have taken a toll on American farmers and ranchers. Financial markets have reacted sharply to the instability, with stock prices experiencing significant fluctuations. Even currency exchange rates are being impacted. This uncertainty is pushing global trade toward regionalization, accelerating a gradual decoupling from supply networks traditionally centered on China. Looking beyond immediate disruptions, experts project several long-term consequences. The continued use of tariffs as a policy tool may accelerate deglobalization, pushing countries to form regional trading blocs. The anticipated tripolar configuration, with the US, China, and Europe as major poles, could permanently reshape global commerce. Economic models suggest that even if short-term growth rebounds, the cumulative drag on productivity could be significant. Projections from institutions like the IMF indicate that protectionist measures might shrink global GDP by nearly 0.8% by 2030. Meanwhile, production costs could rise by 10% globally over the next few years. As key US allies are forced into retaliatory actions, traditional trade relationships may weaken, prompting countries to diversify their economic partnerships. Such realignments could have lasting impacts, not just on trade, but on geopolitical stability and the governance of international commerce. Trump's tariffs are reshaping trade, blurring the line between economics and national security. By deploying tariffs not just as economic tools, but as instruments of broader policy objectives, the administration has set in motion a complex chain of events. From immediate price shocks to the potential emergence of a deglobalized multipolar world order. While domestic producers might see short-term gains, consumers and integrated international markets bear the cost of uncertainty. As these measures force a realignment of long-standing alliances and trade practices, we must ask, is this the dawn of a new economic era, where national borders define competitive advantage? Or will innovation and international cooperation eventually restore a more integrated global marketplace? As we watch these changes unfold, one thing is clear. The decisions made today will shape the future of global trade. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the evolving world of global trade. Want more insights like this? Subscribe to Spark Vision TV and stay ahead of global shifts.